In today's video, we are going to take this broken old iPhone 5 and turn it into wall art. This is going to be a nostalgic one because the iPhone 5 was my introduction to Apple, basically, and it has a special place in my heart. And now on my wall as well. So get subscribed because this is going to be a fun one. Every time I hold an iPhone 5, I am just filled with nostalgia. I absolutely love this form factor. Now, I've talked about the iPhone 5 in a couple of different settings before. I tried to buy one that was brand new and sealed and I got scammed. I successfully bought a brand new one that was sealed and is, immaculate on iOS 6. That thing is gonna be in my collection forever. But this one is a little bit different. This one is broken, and it was also provided by the folks over at Unfabricate who sponsored this video and have provided this rather interesting contraption. Basically, what Unfabricate does is they create these kits that allow you to turn your old iPhone into an interesting piece of art. And honestly, it's a pretty fun and very inexpensive way to get yourself a really interesting statement piece. I mean, if you already have a broken phone, that's sort of what it's intended for, but even if you don't, you can pick up a broken iPhone 5 for like 10 bucks, and the kit itself is like $38, so it's a really cheap way to have a fun afternoon. Maybe if you have kids and you want to work on a little project together, this is a great way to do it, or you can just do it on your own. But today, we're going to take a trip down memory lane and reminisce about the iPhone 5 while turning it into art. Now, I should mention that I didn't look up the instructions beforehand. I'm going to be doing this for the first time with the guidance in this kit. It comes with everything that you need, apparently. So we've got this opening tool. We've got looks like we've got picks, glue, and screwdrivers. That's very useful. Ooh, and of course, who could forget the starburst? We're definitely gonna need that. Let's get started. There's a QR code here that you can scan to pull up the disassembly guide, which I have done. Okay, so we've got this back plate, which is basically an exploded view of the iPhone. So we can set that aside for now. Oh, this is so cool. It has all of the different specs, like the 8 megapixel f2.4 rear camera, the A6 chip on the logic board, the PowerVR SGX 543 MP3 graphics. This was back before Apple developed their own GPUs. They were basically licensing out GPUs to put on their custom chips. This is some good nostalgia right here. So the first step here is gonna be taking apart the iPhone, and then we're gonna go ahead and attach all of the components to this board to create a physical exploded diagram. Should be a really cool idea. You don't have to know how to do this off the top of your head. We're basically going to go in order, and the instructions even have GIFs, and they show with the actual tools that you're gonna get with the kit. So that is really nice to have. The hardest part about disassembling any iPhone is taking the screen off. So we obviously are gonna start with that. These things are really on there. And this iPhone, the iPhone 5, wasn't even water resistant. It's not IP rated. So that's just Apple adhesive for you. We have achieved screen separation, and I'm gonna go around with this little pick that came in the kit to try to leverage the screen off here. Ooh, it's working. Yay. I've actually never taken apart an iPhone 5 before, so this would be my first time. Okay, so now we're gonna twist out these Phillips head screws, which are attaching the screen. Look at that, screen comes right off. Just a few Phillips head screws. That's right, Phillips head screws. This iPhone is old enough that it was still using those. I'm pretty sure Apple has completely abandoned Phillips head screws. I can't remember the last time I saw one in a modern Mac. All right, let's get rid of that battery. 3 more Phillips head screws. And there goes the battery. Wow, this thing is absolutely tiny. Look at it, it's smaller than like a Hershey bar. It really is amazing getting inside this phone after all these years, because it's from a different era. I mean, I've got the screen off and the battery out, and there's like nothing left in this phone. This was basically the peak of Apple's small is big design. The whole point of the iPhone, at least at first, was to be tiny, compact, and still incredibly powerful and usable.
Your thumb. It goes from here to here. This bigger screen goes from here to here. Now, that's either A, an amazing coincidence, or B, a dazzling display of common sense.
To some degree, you could argue that Apple has somewhat lost that magic. Look at the difference in size between the iPhone 5 and the 12 Pro Max. That's insane. Let's go ahead and pull out the logic board and carry on with this disassembly. I just realized I forgot to pop the SIM tray. Every time I take apart a phone, I forget to pop the SIM tray. That is the logic board that makes this thing tick. It really is amazing to think how much tech is crammed onto this tiny little board. It really is amazing. If you take a step back, I feel like, we take technology for granted these days. This was never an expensive phone. Well, I mean, now it's really not because I've taken it apart, but you can pick up iPhone 5s for $40 in working condition. But most people don't because they're old, they're obsolete, they're outdated and slow. But just think back to 9 years ago, how much work went into this tiny little wafer. I mean, this has got your CPU, your GPU, your RAM, your SSD, the cameras up here, all of the processing. It's really incredible.
Compared to the A5, it's 2 times faster at CPU, 2 times faster at graphics. Our expertise in chip design is really showing itself here, because not only is it a huge jump forward in performance, it's also 22% smaller.
And there's the camera. This teeny tiny little module, that 8 megapixel rear sensor. Think about how many photos and videos have been taken with this tiny little camera. How many videos and photos of your memories from 9 years ago were taken with a camera just like this?
An 8 megapixel sensor, 3264 by 2448, backside illuminated for great low light performance, hybrid IR filter, 5-element lens.
Not a whole lot left in the iPhone at this point. Next up, we are going down to the headphone jack, the lightning port, as well as the speaker. Look at how intricate this tiny little assembly is. It's crazy to think about the man hours that go into designing something like this. A speaker that's also cable management and part of the structure of the device, as well as having a pin connection to attach to the board rather than a physical connector, probably to save 0.01 of a millimeter. Everything in this is bespoke. There's no off-the-shelf components that go into making an iPhone. So it's kind of interesting, when a new iPhone comes out and there's articles saying the iPhone only costs $400 in components. That's not what you're paying for. Someone had to go in and design this unbelievably intricate thing, which literally is just a speaker that now kind of sounds terrible, a lightning connector, and a headphone jack. There's so many tiny little itty bitty screws and teensy little brackets. You gotta manufacture like 17 of these tiny, incredibly precise, you can't even see that on camera, little brackets. So there we have it, a disassembled iPhone 5. It's really amazing how many teeny tiny little components go inside of this thing. But now what we gotta do is actually turn it into art. So here's our canvas. Here's our pieces. Here is some glue. And let's get to work. So here's our layout, and now all that's left is quite a bit of gluing, which I'm probably not gonna be very good at, but hopefully I won't ruin it too much. So here is the final thing. It's ready to go in the frame. I'm just gonna make sure that everything is glued down nice and tight. And yeah, I know there's a couple of issues. That's crooked for sure. The sim tool is absolutely crooked. That's crooked too. It's a lot harder than it looks, guys. I was doing the whole thing on camera and I just was like, uh-oh, that's crooked. Oh well. Oh, that was the most satisfying thing I've ever done in my life. So with everything glued together and put in the frame and hung on the wall, this is the final product. And I have to say, it looks really, really good. Despite my terrible job with the glue, you know, if you back up a little bit, it looks pretty good. And I gotta say, what a fun way to spend an afternoon, really getting up close and personal with what was basically my introduction to Apple. This is my brand new iOS 6 iPhone 5 that I will not be taking apart anytime soon. But it's really a special experience to get this up close and personal. I did sort of go a little bit off the rails with my nostalgia. It sort of turned into a little bit of an ASMR tech appreciation video, but hopefully you enjoyed it anyway. I'm not gonna lie, guys, I think the iPhone 5 is one of the best iPhone designs ever. I know a lot of people really like the iPhone 4, and you know, people are always proponents of whatever the current design is, but I think this is probably one of the best of all time. It's iconic, it's classic, it's beautiful. As Phil Schiller said when he introduced it, it's a jewel.
It is an absolute jewel.
So I hope you enjoyed this nostalgic teardown look at the iPhone 5. Thanks to Unfabricate for sponsoring. You can check out links to not just the iPhone 5, but anything from the original iPhone through the iPhone 7, which have kits available. That stuff will be linked in the description below if you want to check it out. And as usual, I will see you guys in the next video.